Andy, I've long said this. I think we've had this conversation here on this program. The iPhone itself is arguably a consumer staple, at least here in the United States. You kind of need the smartphone nowadays to integrate well into society. And so we know that, upgrade cycles have extended a little bit. If you break your phone, maybe you're going to replace it, but maybe it takes a little bit longer. They last a little bit longer than they did a couple years ago. The numbers will still be pretty consistent for the iPhone. Now the interesting thing is with things so there's so much excitement in this name again. It's back towards highs. It's setting new highs. There's got to be other parts of this organization that execute well. And the growth engine over the past few years has been services. So I know you wanted to focus in on that segment. I think that's probably where eyes should be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where eyes will be on, because we can get a lot of insight and the market can get a lot of insight into the sales of iPhones, the number of units that they're moving, that sort of thing. Like Kevin referred to earlier, there's a little bit of, a difference this year in terms of the iPhone release was pushed back due to the pandemic. So I do want to focus on the services business because this is a business that's gone from, under 7% of their revenue to over 20% in the course of just a few years. And we see this really actually accelerating. We see that pace accelerating. When we look LikeFolio data of people talking about downloading, subscribing, purchasing one of Apple's services. So that can include Apple One, Apple Fitness, Apple TV, a subscription to Apple Music, or even transactions on Apple Pay. We see those really popping, 38% year over year growth on what was a pretty nice steady incline type of trend line, like you can see on the chart. So we see this really accelerating over the past couple of quarters, even into this quarter. We think that there's really good reason to think that Apple will be able to tell a very, very good story. The other part of the story that Apple's going to be able to tell that we see in LikeFolio data that is a bit of a question mark is how many people went for the higher end iPhone 12, where the revenue will be a little higher, the price point is higher, the margins are higher on those, and we can say with some certainty that we think the iPhone 12 upper end models, the Max and the Max Pro, whatever those are called, those are going to have a really nice share of the sales of iPhone 12. And so that could be another reason why Apple could beat. And so we think that combination, the fact that consumers are willing to go, to a higher price point, and that the services business is really starting to kick in. And a lot of people think that's the future of Apple. We think that those two things could put together a really nice report for Apple. But like Kevin said, expectations are really, really high. So from a trading perspective, this is a very difficult play.
Andy, it's easy for me to look at the run in the stock in Apple and say that expectations are really high. And it's possible, based on some of the actions we've seen, that they could disappoint these lofty expectations. But the real question is, are people getting this wrong? Are we getting this wrong? Is this company even stronger than we think it is? I mean, is the moat and the ability for them to grow in 5G and every kid in America now, every student needing an iPad, and actually the Mac is growing crazy, and almost every human being now has earbuds. Are we getting this wrong? Is Apple a stronger company than we even think they are?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. When we look on a brand by brand basis at LikeFolio consumer demand numbers, we see the Macintosh and the iPad as the leaders of the pack from a device sales growth perspective. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Kids need these at home. People need these at home while they're working or studying. And so it speaks to the diversification that Apple has as a company, and that it's excellent in each one of these categories. It's excellent with an iPad. It's excellent with a watch. It's excellent with a phone. And then throw a layer of services on there that's absolutely exploding in terms of consumer demand. And you have the makings for Apple becoming kind of one of those companies that just continues to defy expectations, no matter how large and powerful it gets.
Looking at this, obviously the iPhone is still kind of the breadwinner for this company. And in the US, on the low end, kind of the conservative estimates is somewhere around like 40% of the market share, at least of the shipments, is the Apple product relative to the other smartphone options. And high end is probably 50% or so. And so you're talking somewhere between 40 and 50% of all the US smartphones out there or are the iPhone. It's kind of just clear what Apple's trying to do. They know this information. They have access to this. They're basically saying if you have the iPhone, that's not where it stops. We want to make more money just from you using that iPhone. So we want you to buy Apple Music. We want you to buy Apple Fitness. We want you to have the iPad, the Macintosh, the MacBook. We want you to have the AirPods because it all integrates together. Are they putting on a clinic from an entrepreneurial perspective, Andy, of how you build an ecosystem and execute on that?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the dream. This is what, Roku's trying to do. This is what Tesla's trying to do. This is what Netflix is trying to do, is emulate what Apple has already done. And that is get people's eyeballs on the screens that you control, in the experiences that you can control, and then monetize those users over and over again every single day. And I do think that it's possible that we may be, in the near future, we may be talking about, Apple's diminishing revenue from its iPhones, diminishing revenue from its devices, but the explosive revenue from its services and transactions. Let's not forget transactions, because I'll tell you, just from a consumer perspective, when I go to a website and they allow me to check out with Apple Pay, and it takes literally 2 clicks of a button for me to have my shipping and everything in there and the transaction complete, that makes my life easier as a consumer. It makes me more loyal to Apple. It makes me more loyal to the provider, the website that offered that service. And so the big winner there, of course, is Apple, because it's in the mix of all of making everyone in that transaction happy. And so I think that's an explosive avenue for growth as well. So, Apple just firing on all cylinders. If you want to understand the goals and aspirations of every platform provider company out there, just look at the last 10 years and the next 5 years of Apple.
Andy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think a phrase you've often used with a lot of these bigger companies that have executed well is there's better companies to bet against. And I think that probably applies here as well, right?
Absolutely. There's nothing in our data other than the high expectations of Wall Street. There's nothing in our data to suggest that Apple won't report anything but a really nice quarter and a lot of optimism for the future.